Good afternoon from Helsinki, Finland. The idea I would like to suggest is this. In order to be in deep harmony with the Catholic faith, doing science should be inspired by common sense. The reason is that Catholic faith is not only a doctrine about God, man, and the world, but also gives an orientation to one's mindset. And the mindset is common sense. To common sense belong all purely natural understandings and knowledges which human persons recognize as common. Catholic doctrine gives explanations by conveying God's revelation through ordinary experience and language. In that way, it implicitly endorses common sense and thus encourages the believer to give his or her mindset a certain orientation. The topic of this talk is exclusively the encouragement, not theological explanation. I will end up with two results as samples of that encouragement. The reference to common sense is not superfluous, slide 2, and that for historical reasons. The mindset of Western mankind in general and of physicists in particular has been influenced for centuries by philosophers such as René Descartes, who said that man is deceived by his senses. Therefore, he proposed a worldview built by mental reconstruction. To the same line belongs Immanuel Kant, who maintained that we do not learn from nature its laws, but impose our own laws upon nature. Kant himself called that view counterintuitive. He was explicitly echoed by Einstein and in a way also by Heisenberg, Hertz, and so many others who did not write about that idea, but nevertheless followed it. Think also of Karl Popper, who defended the view that nature does not answer the questions, and of Carlo Rovelli, who published a book with the title, Reality is Not What It Seems. Of course, all these authors differ in many aspects, but all of them favor a worldview that is rather dominated by mental reconstruction than by learning from nature. By now, it has become clear that I am limiting myself to physics, and that I maintain that the mindset dominant in physics is alienated from the mindset of Catholic faith. To put it in other words, first, the mindset of Catholic faith is close to common sense. Second, the mindset of physics is quite distant from common sense. Ergo, third, the mindset of physics is quite distant or alienated from the mindset of Catholic faith. Mindset. Nevertheless, one could ask, where is the problem? Physics is a serious science. What for does it need an orientation by common sense? The problem is that physics consists of two bodies of knowledge, namely experience and theories. And these two bodies are not sufficiently linked by experiments. The most obvious lack is that while everybody knows that mathematics works in physics, nobody knows why. This problem continues being unsolved, and it cannot be tackled from the side of mathematics, but only from the side of experience. As long as it is not solved, a physicist is hosting in his mind two opposite mindsets. As a Christian, he or she thinks and acts according to common sense. As a physicist, he or she acts in a mindset far from common sense. It is not only a problem of different doctrines, but also a problem of the splitting of mindsets within the same person. The overcoming of that opposition of mindsets is a purely philosophical task that can be dealt with by any qualified person. Yet, a Catholic has a certain backup by pronouncements of the Catholic Church that fall into the category of theological encouragement. In one way or other, they touch upon the high cognitive value of ordinary experience and language. Therefore, I shall very briefly mention three of these pronouncements. Thereafter, I shall mention two major results of putting such encouragement into practice by focusing on ordinary experience. Slide number 3. The first and perhaps strongest pronouncement is that about the possibility of a natural theology, which has already been mentioned twice today. That is to say that the Church holds and teaches that God, the beginning and end of all things, can be known with certitude by the natural light of reason, of human reason, from created things. This statement is very old, and the Church has formally made it part of Catholic faith in the First Vatican Council Dogmatic Constitution Dei Filius. In our context, we are not concerned with the knowledge of the Creator's existence, but with the knowledge of nature. Both knowledges are linked, because if the things of this world are intelligible in such a way that an attentive observer can be led to the insight of creation and creator, then these same things also can lead an attentive observer to a certain insight into properties of material things, for instance, causalities and regular behaviors. It is as if Christian revelation said, scientists, trust your eyes and your mind. Through them, you are in contact with reality. For that precise purpose, you have got them. This said, it should be noted that nature and the ordinary experience of it have their own language. One should be prepared to adjust one's intellectual optics to what experience suggests. In other words, the encouragement urges us to focus upon experience. This requires a very strong intellectual discipline that one achieves only little by little over the decades. Even more, one should be somehow reluctant to leave experiences out, although the sheer complexity of processes seems to insinuate abstractions or simplifications. Precisely that might well be the most specific feature of theological encouragement. The focus on experience by exhortations like trust your eyes and your mind and learn from nature also means don't copy from others. For instance, the philosophers of nature before the scientific revolution of the 17th and 18th centuries had neither an idea of the microscopic world nor of higher mathematics. How could one reasonably copy from them? What one could and should learn from them is being inspired by common sense, because all of them were unaffected by the turn to modernity of the time of Descartes and amplified by the scientific revolution. A second pronouncement is contained in the encyclical Fides et Ratio by John Paul II. In the final part of Fides et Ratio, the Pope directly addresses scientists and encourages them to do their science within a sapiential horizon, number 106, freely paraphrased as guided by wisdom. While it is not made clear in that passage what precisely that sapiential horizon is, it is absolutely clear that natural sciences are situated within such a horizon, which excludes the alternative that natural sciences themselves constitute such a sapiential horizon. Last not least, the third pronouncement is that of the parallelism between the incarnation of the Son of God on the one hand and the Word of God revealed in human language on the other. I will not go into details. Admittedly, only the first of these three pronouncements directly addresses the high cognitive value of ordinary experience and language, together with the cognitive capacities of the human mind. But taking them all together, they have considerable weight and, to my mind, can rightly be called an encouragement to trust the natural human means of understanding and communication. A Catholic should make an evaluation of his or her own and decide how to follow that encouragement. Now, all these considerations might be very nice, but are useless unless the encouragement is put into practice. Now, slide number 4. In order to follow the encouragement, a vast variety of experiences must be examined, distinguished, and sorted together. That is a tedious work. Let me mention here 2 experiences relevant for present-day physics in order to give a taste of what sort of insights ordinary experience can yield. They can be called ambivalence and overinterpretation of the double-slit experiment that has led to the particle wave dualism. First, the term ambivalence refers to that the functions object and apparatus in an experiment are not predetermined by nature. Therefore, it is exclusively the experimenter who determines which is which. In other words, it is the experimenter who eliminates the natural ambivalence according to his purposes and perhaps also according to reasons of practicability. Altogether, the practical elimination of the ambivalence by the experimenter lessens the objectivity of the mathematical theory and restrains the information which enters that theory. In order to get a more complete picture of reality, it is necessary to not eliminate, but to take into account the ambivalence. This is a philosophical trust, not an experimental, and it cannot be excluded that it is the door to some insight into the reason why mathematics is working so well in physics. Now, next slide. The second experience leads to identifying a logical mistake, nothing less, in the interpretation of the result of double-slit experiments. Consider that picture. Every single spot is caused by a single particle, and it contributes to the collective result, but does not constitute it. If from that collective result is taken a measurement, usually interpreted as a wavelength, that measurement cannot be attributed to every single spot, respective particle. This well-known procedure or interpretation is called particle wave dualism. It is successful, but unfortunately at the expense of a logical mistake. Now, both ambivalence and overinterpretation are surprisingly simple. Perhaps that is the reason why they have passed more or less unnoticed. In any case, because of their simplicity, they lie at the foundations of physical science and might well spark further investigations. In a larger context, both consequences will be published in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you, Father Rudolf, for your talk. We have time for a short question. If not, maybe we proceed.
We have one remote question. Wait a second.
Okay, there is one question. Okay.
Good afternoon, Father. So I would like to have one question regarding the beginning of your lecture. So it's about common sense. Yeah. So do you think it is mutual to every human being on earth, or it differs depending on the cultural affiliation? Or also another thing that I wanted to specify is many people these days exclude common sense from philosophical consideration. And do you think that it is correct, or maybe it is a mistake? How would you tackle this problem?
Yeah, this is, do you hear me? Do you hear me now?
We hear you. I don't know if
yes, we do.
Okay. Yeah, that is a very important question, and at the same time a very delicate question, because common sense is a very general term, and as you say, there are cultural differences, and if there were no cultural differences, there is the difference from one individual to another, everybody with his own history. But on the other side, there is the surprising fact that people communicate, understand each other, and if there is misunderstanding, there is also normally a way of identifying this misunderstanding and normally eliminate that misunderstanding. So there is a phenomenon of communication and common understanding. If you call it common sense, well, that is a question of etymology and philosophical tradition. But I think the phenomenon is existent. It is, however, not easy to go into more details. I think to check or to use common sense, one has referred to individual events or individual objects and speak about them and saying in another way, to be as less formal as possible.
Thank you very much.
Yes, all right. So I think that answers my question. If you don't mind, I'd like to push another question. So
a short one.
Does that differ, very short one, yes. So does that differ much from strictly Thomistic common sense, or it is pretty much the same?
No, common sense in sensus communis is something different in Thomistic philosophy. I mean common sense in the normal understanding of everyday language. There's also the philosophical term common sense, but maybe it's not worthwhile to go into details now. But so I mean the normal understanding.
That's all right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Let us thank the speaker again.